We are now recording. Matt from Staley's is on Teams meeting, and it's the right name and the right thing. Everybody sign in. Okay, is there any additions to the agenda?
No.
Not, they'll stand, approval of July 15th, 2025 meeting minutes. There's no additions or corrections. Those will be on file in the clerk reporter's office and on the website. Public comment and any agenda item. We're pretty comfortable here to allow conversation during the items as they come up. So unless you want to do a preamble, but just wait till we get to it. Sound good? All right. No public hearing, no bid openings. We have some personnel announcements. Planning office, we're still looking for a planner. Road department, bridge and gravel crew, permanent full-time. Fairgrounds office clerk. Are we still looking for those?
No.
Like this week, I think that's open.
Yeah,
You haven't applied by now? We don't need you. Well, I shouldn't say that. Detention officer, permanent full-time. Anything else? All right. Announcements and reports. The elevator, starting July 7th, will be closed or out of service for 40 days. So it's out of service now for real. And I don't know. We'll see if that 40-day thing works out, but hopefully early in August, it's back online.
and we do have a phone in the lobby.
Yes.
So if somebody needs help and can't do the stairs, they can call the department and they'll come down to them.
Yep. Hobby phone with connects to the upper floors. All right. I will be out of state next week. I'll be back Thursday or Friday, depending on how things go. At PC, working on Department of Interior.
Clerk and Reporters is having their state convention in Lewistown, August 4th through the 7th. So it's Clerk and Reporters and election administrators. And our local office will have some limited hours so that Abby can come to the trainings and I can train, put the show on. And then this week, our office will also have some limited hours because we're short-staffed. Abby will be gone and then I'm volunteering out at the fair, so just kind of hit and miss in my office. Just be aware.
Okay. Very good. And VACOM is having their grand opening Friday afternoon. So. Anything else? Okay, discussion action items, July 22nd, 2025 claims. What would be your pleasure?
And move to approve the claims from July 22nd, 2025.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Second item, South McDonald Creek minor subdivision. Discussion side. Matt, you want to give us yes, right? Matt's the give us the rundown. All right.
Absolutely. So this is a 4-lot, 84-acre minor subdivision proposed by Harry and Maxine Scott of Mesa, Arizona. I believe the developer's agent is there, Garth, with WWC should be in the room.
Yep, he's here.
Earlier today. Okay. The existing lots are, or excuse me, the existing land use consists of agricultural use. By the time it's all done, the land use will be residential / agricultural. It is surrounded by agricultural land. The proposed subdivision is a first minor subdivision from a tract of record. So the following don't apply. That includes the preparation of environmental assessment, a parkland dedication, and a public hearing are all not required. The proposed tracts will all have access from the existing South McDonald Creek Road, which is a county road. Like I said, all of them are going to be used for single family dwelling with on-site water and on-site sewer. Utility easements have been provided on site. However, this proposed subdivision is going to be considered the developer wants to use this as an off-grid subdivision. In other words, he does not want to or does not intend to extend power to each lot. That becomes a little bit of a piece of contention because in the subdivision regulation, there is an item that says the subdivider must provide adequate easements for the construction and maintenance of utilities within the subdivision, and the subdivider must obtain an easement necessary to extend utilities to the subdivision. There is a note or an email from Fergus County, or excuse me, from the Fergus Power Company that says that they need to obtain an off-site easement in order to extend power to the property. That the developer is not wanting to actually obtain those easements, those off-site easements, so he has requested a variance. When we reviewed that variance, just to kind of get this, and it's on the last page of the staff report, the one thing that we didn't see is a hardship that was created by this, by not approving the variance. I think Garth wasn't at that, or the development agent wasn't at that planning board meeting. We still haven't addressed that, but it's the subject that the commissioners are going to have to make a decision on. That being said, and I'll get to a little bit more detail of that a little later. We do need to ensure the compliance standards defined in the Fergus County subdivision regulations, the Montana Subdivision Planning Act. We have until August 11th of 2025 for the commissioners to actually take official action on this subdivision. It does adhere to the adopted growth policy because of where it's located. And we do have, we still need to talk about the effects on agriculture, which the proposed subdivision does not have any soils that are prime farmland or farmland or of statewide importance. The existing parcel is currently used for grazing livestock, although these tracts are smaller than the original 84 acres. And we want to change at least a portion of those lots into residential dwellings. The proposed that doesn't preclude the use, at least a small or remaining portion of those lots to continue to be used for grazing. Our conclusion, the staff report, was the subdivision will have an impact on agriculture and some mitigation is required. And we will be recommending the noxious weed plan be approved by that is approved by the county, is followed by the developer and the landowners as time goes on. Effect on agricultural water user facilities. There are no agricultural water user facilities located within the proposed subdivision, so the effects will be negligible. The effects on local services, water and wastewater, the proposed subdivision is all going to be used, on-site water and on-site sewer. There is a new law that says you have to get a notice of appropriation from the Department of Natural Resources in order to procure a groundwater right for additional subdivisions. And we have asked, one of the conditions of approval is that they actually obtain that notice of appropriation before the final plat. In addition, the proposed plan is to divide up that exempt water right that currently exists for that 80 acres into 4 separate water rights. In other words, we're going to divide it into 4 separate water rights. We don't understand how they're going to limit each lot to that 10 acre-feet per year. And we've asked that be addressed through the notice of appropriation. The roads each house will utilize and access off of South McDonald Creek Road. All of those approaches have already been approved by the county road department. So the driveway locations have actually been approved. We were asking in the conditions of approval that the driveways be actually constructed in accordance with where those approved approach locations have been approved. The sheriff's department was notified on 24 February by the developer. No comment has been received, so no mitigation from law enforcement is required. Fire and ambulance. So the fire district, which is the Heath Rural Fire Department, they have claimed they will have a response within 5 to 7 minutes once they get notified of an emergency. In addition, the Heath Rural Fire Department is a subscription service, and this is a new one on me. Each lot within the Heath Rural Fire District has a membership fee of $749 per parcel in order to be included within the fire district. We would like all four of these lots. I think all four of these lots should be included in that fire district. And so that we have required in the conditions of approval that that fee per lot is paid prior to final plat filing. So that each one of those lots is actually included in the fire district. Lewistown Public Schools were notified of development by letter by the developer. The school district stated that bus services that area and is able to accommodate the influx of students. Solid waste trash removal will be provided by individual home sites by the local sanitation company. Mail delivery. The developer must contact Lewistown Post Office to have the mailbox area reviewed and approved. There may be some mitigation required. Parkland requirements, because this is a minor subdivision of a first tract record, parkland requirements are not required or not applicable. The provisions for utility easements, again, the Fergus Electric was notified of the proposed development. They have requested an easement to be acquired from Baki Dolls and Williams, which I do believe are adjacent landowners, in order to get power to the proposed development. It's kind of counter what the entire proposal is, which is going to be an off-grid development with no electrical power, no electrical service to each lot. Effect on the natural environment. There's some clays in this area. The bedrock is can be shallow in areas. However, I believe the developers already applied for DEQ approval, or excuse me, county sanitation approval. And I think if they haven't gotten there already, they're on the verge of getting that. There are some steeper slopes in the areas of proposed lots 3 and 4. However, due to the size of the lot, there is adequate space to construct a single family home in the lot. We did not, after we reviewed the conditions of the property, we didn't, no mitigation was required. Felt no mitigation was required. Storm drainage for single family dwellings on a 21-acre tract will be minimal. All surface and stormwater drainage issues must comply with Fergus County Health Department approval. There is a small drainage on the northwest corner of lot 4 that may flow watering during significant runoff events. The proposed subdivision is not currently with any published floodplain maps. We determined there was a little bit of mitigation required from the standpoint that all health department requirements for storm drainage must be met. Effects on wildlife. Planning office not aware of any protected or endangered species of animals within the proposed subdivision. The area is frequented by the wildlife, and this subdivision will have some impact. But the Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks were notified on February 24th, and no comments were received. This is not included in the excuse me. That is not included in the Montana State Grouse habitat. So it is required to complete an online application, and it has been submitted. This subdivision is not in that core area, so there's no mitigation for wildlife. Effects on wildlife habitat. Not aware of any protected or endangered species of plants within the proposed subdivision. The preliminary plat shows an area of marshland. However, no wetlands are shown or included on the wetland map from the state of Montana Library. I think that small area that is a marshy area, again, because these tracts are so large, there's adequate space to actually build a single family home on. Effect on the public health and safety. A fire hazard analysis was completed, and the result is this is a low fire hazard area. Land cover throughout the development's primary grassland. The developer has stated that homes will meet fire resistant landscaping, so that there's we did have a conversation. We have included that as a condition of approval to ensure that fire resistant landscaping is included and notified. Each landowner is notified of the requirement. when we talk about hazards on the property, there are no flooding hazards that we are aware of. Snow avalanches, there is a very small possibility for snow avalanches, limited slopes in the east side of lot 4. However, again, this area is very small compared to the size of the lot. Rock falls, no known rock falls on the site, no known landslides. There are small areas of steep slopes in excess of 25%. However, these are very limited when you start talking about a 21 acre lot. Subsidence, there is no parcel subject to subsidence. The high water table there, the preliminary plat does note some marsh area on the east side of the proposed lot 4 and some areas on the south side of lot 3. However, these are very small areas, again, very small areas compared to the size of the lots. Polluted or non-potable water supply, none that we are aware of. High voltage lines, there are no power lines out there. High pressure gas lines, none noted on the plat. Aircraft or vehicular traffic hazards or congestion, there is none. Severe toxic or hazardous weight exposure, none. Excessive expenditures of public funds, we don't see that happening. Environmental degradation, no. Other features which may be detrimental to the health and safety of the general welfare of the existing or future residents. Planning office is not aware of any detrimental features. The provisions for legal and physical access provided each lot from South McDonald Creek Road. Currently, there is not a defined easement along South McDonald Creek Road. The subdivider has proposed basically to provide a 60-foot wide easement from the surveyed center line of the existing gravel road. So that will be a record when this is done. The historical sites, there was Montana Historical Society has no record of historical or archaeological features on the property. The subdivider did not provide any covenants. With that being said, we proposed, I think it was 18 conditions, which consist of 1, pets are not permitted to roam at large. The developer must obtain and following the weed abatement plan. 3, all Fergus County Health Department requirements for water, wastewater, and storm drainage must be followed. 4, the post office must meet and county requirements for mail delivery must be met. 5, access and utility easements must be shown on the final plat with utilities being placed underground whenever practical. Condition 6, development permits and addresses must be obtained from the county planning office for each residential structure before construction begins. New address must be posted on the dwelling clearly visible from the road. Condition 7, best management practices for rangeland must be followed. Condition 8, future landowners must be notified of neighboring agricultural use and the right to farm. Condition 9, landowners must be notified of appropriate septic tank maintenance. Condition 10, wildland firewise guidelines must be followed, including but not limited to driveway requirements, spark arrestor chimneys, bridge load requirements, etc. Condition 11, approaches must be installed and approved by the county supervisor prior to filing of the final plat. I believe they already have gotten the approval from the county road supervisor for the approaches. We just need to get them installed. Landowners, condition 12, landowners must be notified of the approved subdivision lot layouts. Condition 13, the developer will notify future landowners of the requirements for the fire resistant landscaping. Condition 14, landowners must be notified they are within 3 miles of a military site. Condition 15, developer must pay the subscription fee to the Heath Rural Fire Department prior to final plat. Condition 16, approaches must be constructed for each lot. 17, developer must obtain a notice of intent to appropriate from DNRC. Again, that's a new law that just got put into effect. And then condition 18 is add a water cistern as a supplemental water source to aid on-site firefighting until local fire department arrives. That was a condition that was recommended by the planning board, and I believe there was a fire. One of the adjacent landowners asked if that could be included. I did want to take just a minute to talk about the variance request. The developer has requested a variance from section 6-MA, which states the subdivider must provide adequate and appropriate easements for the construction and maintenance of the utilities within the subdivision. The subdivider must obtain any easements necessary to extend the utilities to the subdivision. The following criteria is what needs to be evaluated in order to approve the variance. The first is the granting of the variance will not be detrimental to public health, safety, or general welfare or injurious to other adjoining properties. The planning department is not aware of any detriment to public health, safety, or general welfare or injurious to adjoining properties. Due to, the second thing is due to the physical surroundings, shape, or topographical conditions of the property involved, strict compliance with the regulations will impose an undue hardship on the owner. Undue hardship does not include personal and financial hardship or any hardship that is self-imposed. The developer did not provide any explanation of why not meeting this requirement would impose an undue hardship. And I think that's our biggest concern, I think, between the planning department and the planning board. The variance will not cause a substantial increase in public costs. If we granted this variance, I don't believe it would. The public would incur any increased costs. And then finally, the variance will not place the subdivision in non-conformance with any adopted zoning regulation. Currently, the property is not subject to zoning regulations, so that the variance, granting the variance request meets three of the four things that need to be that need to be considered. And the only thing that we're really concerned about is we just don't understand the hardship. That basically concludes and I think the planning board recommended denial of the variance based on not really having any substantiated hardship. That concludes our staff report. Any questions?
So,
Okay, Jennifer?
so they would provide the easement for utilities, but they would not be required to provide the actual electrical line or hookup at this time?
So what they're proposing right now is they will provide electrical easements on their property on this development. But they're requesting not to have to go get those offsite easements that would be required to put in at this time to put in the power. And so there are two property owners two adjacent property owners that they need to secure an easement from, and they don't want to secure that easement. They also do not want to put in the electrical line, and there is nothing that I can find in the subdivision regulations or state law that requires a developer to install utilities, dry utilities, power, telephone, gas to their lots. We've actually seen some other subdivisions in other counties where they're so remote that they didn't have to put in the commissioners didn't require them to put in power or gas or telephone. It is a little unique, however. Does that answer your question?
So then the letter from Fergus Electric that is saying that they are required to install that electrical system to the property is not compliant with state law?
Well, I don't know where they came up with that. I have never seen that. I mean, I think that I've never seen that in state law.
So that's a Northwest Energy,
Actually, Melanie's Fergus Electric.
or that's what I meant, Fergus Electric, sorry.
It may be very well maybe a Fergus Electric rule, but I haven't been unable to find that in subdivision law. And nor is it in your subdivision regulations.
Right.
So, I really struggle anymore. I'll be honest with you. I really just take this for whatever it's worth. When we start talking about solar power and other power sources, and even some generators now that have gotten to where they're pretty affordable. And I actually know a human being that lives off grid. I don't think it's getting to be more and more commonplace to actually have those kinds of systems in play, or to have those types of developments. I don't think it's common by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't know that it's a huge ask anymore. So, but I think that's something that has to be considered.
Garth?
Yeah, go ahead, Garth.
So yeah, this is one of the issues I wanted to come in and talk about today. As you mentioned, I wasn't at the planning board meeting, and I think some of these issues may have gotten cleared up. And this was one of them. As you said, we met 3 of the 4 criteria for the variance. We're just missing this one. In my opinion, when we're going in there for an off-grid development and requiring that to come through the neighbors, get those easements, is a hardship, because those neighbors may not be real approachable as far as getting those easements put through there. I mean, there's no incentive for them to provide that easement. And when I was sitting down with my client, they decided that easement was going to be a potential deal breaker for the development at all, if they couldn't get that easement. So in my mind, even though it's in the regulations, it is a hardship for our development. And as he mentioned, those remote areas, you're going to confront this again. And this will set precedent for those remote areas that are going to require 50 different neighbors to provide easements, to get power to. So I think this is an interesting first case where there's only 2 neighbors, but I do feel like it puts a hardship on the success of this development to get those easements put there, even when we're not planning on putting power to it. It seems like an undue request when that isn't even in the plans to me. But I know they had their conversation, and I wasn't involved in our conversation, so I wasn't able to tell them why we felt it was a hardship. But I guess I was hoping today to be able to talk to you about that and see what you thought, so maybe we could get that approved rather than denying.
So the hardship argument is we have no intention of getting it, so any expenditure for it.
Expenditure, or just even the realm of possibility. I mean, even beyond the money side of it, I mean, it may just not be bought. I know when I was approached with the power easement through my property a couple of years back, and I mean, there was no reason for me to want to have to deal with power lines through my place. Didn't matter the amount of money. I didn't want to have another electrical corridor going through my property. So I feel like when it's not even in the plans, it seems like a kind of a tough thing to have to approach.
And as they're marketing these properties, they're marketing them as off-grid.
She has not marketed them to this time, but they will be marketed as off-grid. Yes. And we put the easement, as you mentioned, we put the easements through the subdivision, because if ever in the future Fergus Electric wants to come by the subdivision and go along a county road, that easement's there for them to do that. We're not going to restrict their movement through there. But it's just the offsite easements that are the difficulty. But we put the easements in the subdivision, so that was covered if they need to go through there.
Does that have any effect? I see they're required to put cisterns on each lot.
That was the other one. I didn't know if you wanted me to talk about that. That was the other. So I had two items. That was the other one. I guess this one,
cisterns on each lot, or one cistern for all of it? One cistern.
Oh, it's just one. Okay.
so this one caught me really off guard. I'll be honest with you. We went through the fire rating worksheet as he mentioned. And I can share that with you. We ended up with a score of 87, and anything less than 101 is considered low risk, low priority. So you can see some of the scoring for that fire. Is it in there?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's in here.
Yeah, so we came across low risk. I mean, there's no timber on the property. It's grass. We have you know, in your conditions, we have, I counted 1, 2, 3 other conditions dealing with fire. That I feel like adequately cover the fire response. We talked to the Heathborough Fire District. And a 5 to 7 minute response is probably gonna beat most of the local people that are gonna come help. And by the time they figure out how to hook up to a cistern, the local fire department's gonna be there. They have 18 active firefighters and 8 different apparatuses, and it's within like 4 miles of the site. So I feel like, while the intention is good to have the cistern, I think it's just an undue requirement that doesn't necessarily make sense for this property.
I want to touch on that, Gar. So I'm landowner next to it and captain for the fire district. So that 5 to 7 minute response time is once we're at the trucks are out of the building and we're moving, so take 5 to 7 minutes from the fire hall to respond. What's that?
Are you Pat? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I'd never met Pat. I just talked to okay.
So it takes us 5 to 7 minutes to respond from the fire hall. It's gonna take us probably response time closer to 30 minutes before we get people to the fire hall. Trucks started and to that.
What is
Biggest
your-
concern I have with that issue up there is the fact that there's no water. You know, they're limited to 2.5 gallons per minute out of that water right. So without a cistern, without some type of water to pull from, you know, there's not much we can do to do any structural protection at all. Except for what we bring. In the winter time, getting to that site is limited at best. To get a structure truck out there already, so. We do respond with 4-wheel drive brush trucks more than likely to get there in the winter time, so that was a concern that we have. Some type of cistern to provide adequate coverage for their fire needs.
So you guys do structure fires?
We are a structured district.
What district are you?
Heathrow.
Oh, you are, okay. Sorry, I wasn't aware of them. Yeah, he put on here 15 minutes to be on scene, is what I read further down, so. But as you said, 5 to 7 minutes, estimated travel time. I would estimate that the first responding unit would be on the scene in 15 minutes, so. Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of that. It caught me off guard. I feel like. And obviously you must feel differently, but I just feel like. Even the connections to it, it's gonna take just as much time to get connected to it, and if this is a property that has that requirement, it's gonna be every property in the future. I mean, this is as low risk as I think you can get. So.
So is the
How many
system,
cisterns do you have in your district?
For fire suppression. There's a couple out there. I mean, this is one of the only subdivisions that's happened in years.
I think I can address where one is, and the planning board approved that was on 79 Trail.
I don't know, but that's not in this district.
No, but what I'm
The
saying.
79 trail, it busted and never worked.
I'll get to that point
Yeah.
when we get there, but well, maybe I should address that now. And you're right, how do we know that actually that system gets filled?
So is that a fire department responsibility then to maintain the cistern and keep it full?
Well, no, we're just as an ask, right? You know, we're limited resources already, so if they could put a subdivision and do it, it'd be nice if they could get more. Yeah,
That was just kind of my question, because you hit it. The only one I know of is the one they put out there in Weaver subdivision, or near it, right, isn't it? It's out there, it's in that area. Isn't that the cistern? There's the 79 trail,
79 Trail and
yeah.
what's-
But I just know that that's been a contention since the beginning, is they put it in, it collapsed and broke, and it's never held water and it's never been used, and so then I don't know, how do you make sure it's gonna be of any value?
The other question I had is
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, that's my question about
I
the fire
guess
department.
if I was a landowner and I wanted to protect my $100,000 house, it'd be in my best interest to provide some type of contingency plan to protect it. We can't force issue, we can just make the ask, right? You want us to provide that, stack the cards in your favor. Now, from a landowner perspective next door, you know, as I look at this right up and you have one water on 10 gallons per minute, you're gonna divide that 4 ways.
10 acre feet a year. Yep.
So
So it's 35 gallons a minute or 10 acre feet a year. So kind of two different. So it'd be 2.5.
So I thought the engineer report originally said they were gonna do one well. There's a current, must be a livestock water right on that property at the moment.
There's a water right, and that will be, it will go to the lot 4 owner, because it's on lot 4.
So, but then they're going for a 10 gallon per minute. I thought it was a 10 gallon per minute and under well for the rest of the subdivision. They were gonna split that up.
It's split, it's a 35 gallon a minute split 4-way. I mean, you can max out at 35 gallons a minute or 10 acre feet a year.
If it's approved or apportioned.
Right, appropriate, yeah. So that's what we'll just divide that as a part of their conditions. We had to get that, and that's what we'll do with DNRC, it's just get that.
So my thought was if they have to have one well on the lot already, it covers the other 3 owners. That'd be a good place to put in a cistern to help mitigate that.
So each lot will have its own wells, yeah. The other
Because they're
question I
just going
had,
after the water rate, not the specific well. Right, that's what you're saying, is there's a,
there's a limit on,
yeah,
before you have to get an actual
Right.
water rate on it.
they're just going after exempt wells. In general, which means you get 10 acre water. I mean, and that's a whole argument about, well, how does anybody manage that? Right, that's why there was a lawsuit in Broadwater County that shut everything down, is. People are saying, well, how do we know there's, 1,000 houses up there with wells in the ground, what's our water system look like? And. But yeah, that's just a generalized thing that residential, if you own property, put a house in, you've got some right to get water on your property. It's basically what it amounts to, and so they put a number on it,
Mhm.
but nobody's really measuring it,
Right.
and most of them aren't using that much. You about have to get into irrigation before you actually use that kind of water. But anyway, so go ahead.
I'll share this, the well that we have that would be closest to that subdivision, we needed 20 gallons a minute for livestock. We had to go down 700 feet to hit Madison Aquifer to get that, and boy, 700 feet at today's prices is gonna cost a ton of money.
Yeah,
But otherwise, there's no proven water on any of that.
that's the risk you
Except
take
that's
when you
water.
buy a piece of property out there.
But we can also prevent. The, the different items you have here. From becoming a problem also. First of all, there's one on 18, and we talk about the water system, but they don't say how big. And that's probably engineered somewhere. I don't believe that was brought up at the planning board either, so. My biggest problem with the whole thing would be, you got 18 items and various other things that will come up, and there's no covenants. Who's gonna enforce all these things? When, at least with some covenants and homeowners association, there's a mechanism for enforcement. And without that, who's gonna enforce it?
Well, you countywide zoning.
They could do they could do a 40-acre zoning district also. But again, there's some kind of enforcement. And there's enough acres to do that.
Well. What specifically are you concerned about? I mean, because,
Well,
everybody's in the same situation, right? If your dogs are running loose. That's an ordinance and the sheriff comes out and gets after you. So that's,
Well, who's
number
gonna-
one, pets are not permitted to roam at large. I bet your pets roam at large at times. I mean, everybody lives in the country, their dogs run around. When they become a hassle, either the neighbor shoots them or somebody calls them in, but. And I get it, the more people, that you get a little more user conflict going on, but I mean, it's kind of how the county works at this point.
I don't think I'm talking about, and it's funny how you bring that up, because my dog goes to his place. I beat him over there most of the time, but, and say most of the time. But there's a lot more than just dog things here. I mean, there's a lot outright enforcement. Who's giving the eyes? If somebody isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing out here, you know? Who's gonna let them know that, okay, you gotta, pump out your septic system? Who's gonna do all this stuff?
Well, who tells you?
I'm not part of the subdivision. And I'm not part of the homeowner association.
So, who tells you?
That's it.
So,
How big is your place? How many acres?
20.
Okay,
So-
so my point is that. I mean, I understand what you're saying, except who tells you to pump your septic
But,
tank
but
out?
on the other hand, the big picture here is, we want subdivisions that are well planned out. That are really marketable for the people, either on grid or off grid. I deal with a lot of off grid things down in the Bull Mountains doing appraisals. Is there more of them around? Garth, absolutely there is. Are there a lot of them that? Finance is sometimes tough. Absolutely. Are they willing, or are they able to get financing? Yes, on some, but it depends on the lender.
Based on what? What's your?
Because they don't
have
want to
the credit, or
finance when
they
it's
don't?
off grid, there's no power.
Yeah.
Specifically. There's,
But isn't that, I mean, if I own 80 acres and I want to split it into 4 lots, and you're telling me, boy, you might not be able to sell those because you can't.
I'm not saying you can be able to sell them.
Well, you just said you can't finance them.
Well, finance, if they want to put a house on it, and all of a sudden, you gotta really search around for some lender that's willing to do it at probably a higher interest rate. And does it become feasible to build that $300,000-400,000 house, which shouldn't take much? At $300 a square foot, it isn't ever a big house these days. I mean, it's more of a cabin than a house.
This is the issue, and I brought it up, and nobody bites on it when I say it. If you really want to have control over your neighbor's property, then you need to agree to a zoning process, right?
Mhm.
And the thing is as soon as I say zoning, you guys want to be zoned?
I think eventually, yes.
Okay, so that's my point. That's what needs to happen. You need to have that discussion, because right now what we're doing is we're looking across the fence and telling somebody else what to do with their property. And I have a hard time with that, even though I get it. I'm not the guy living next door to whatever it might be. I also know the problems with it. All you gotta do is go to the old stagecoach stop up there. What is the?
The old stagecoach stuff.
It's a little.
Give me a general area.
Stagecoach. Yeah, no, there's a few of them, like, the back way to
Cheadle,
the Black
Giltech.
Mountain, or Black Butte Road.
Fort McGinnis.
Duffy's live there.
Fort McGinnis?
Yeah, but what's the little town next to it?
There's Cheadle, there's
What's that?
Guilford.
Gilt's Edge.
Right? Isn't that the one that's got the menagerie of garbage and hillbillies living in it? Don't quote that. It's a major stop for law enforcement.
But
So there's a problem. There's no zoning, yeah. Yeah.
there is, but we can also prevent that by, they can still market this property at 88. There's nobody saying they can't sell it, and whoever buys it can do whatever they want with it.
I guess from a neighboring landowner, we just want to make sure that, we want their success. But we want the county to forward think on this and say, all right, what issues can we mitigate now? Because I surround them on 3 sides, so I need to deal with it more than anybody else. I want to make sure that we cover these bases, and, especially in that area and around Fergus County, we're seeing more and more of these ag lands being converted into other, residential areas. And it'd be a good chance to, set the precedent of what we want to see in the future. And the cistern is a way of us as a fire district saying, we would certainly like to see, if not this one, the next one, a way for us to mitigate some of those risks, because it's not only the fact that we now have a subdivision we have to cover, it's more resource needs, but nobody else is volunteering for it. So having that cistern limits our need of extra resources to get there. So it's an ask. It's not a need, but it's an ask that we maybe include some of those things so that we can kind of project what the future needs might be.
And are you talking, would the cisterns be utilized for strictly the structure fire? Or do you want it there also for grassland fires? So prior to them
We'll just.
getting a home
So
built?
if we can hook up a truck, whether it's a grassland fire and refill. Maybe it's not that district, maybe it's the ag land across the way and the fire's coming, but we can at least grab water there in a hurry. And spray the grass and try to mitigate that risk to that subdivision. You know, it's. Like I said, it's a want versus a need. We would like. For any new subdivision in the area to have, you know, be thinking about that. Especially an off the grid one where they can't call right away and say, hey, we got an issue, or hey, our well's not working, we can't put out this little fire from our garbage tank. Well, it'd be really convenient for us to run up there and grab some water and go.
You know, not,
Mike?
then is another issue is because, okay, you're gonna get old people. Without power, I don't know if there's. In my place, anyway, on Radio Road, we don't have cell phones. So we get it by Wi-Fi, by way of power. So how do you actually count on them? You want, you know, take care of them?
There's a lot, I mean, they can do Starlink or there's lots of
Yeah,
different things.
And there may be cell phones up there.
Most people
Okay,
don't
go
have landlines. The other thing I was confused about the cistern is there's really no, there's no written regulations on what to put in. So as an engineer, I kind of need to know what specifications, you know, for how big, what's it got to look like, what's the connections look like. There's a lot of, you know, just as a cistern could be anything. But we don't know at this point without any kind of regulations saying this is what needs to be put in there. We don't really understand what that means on our end. I mean, is it 20 gallons or is it 10,000 gallons? Or, I mean, there's.
Well, and you see sometimes where there's water impediments, you know, they put in a pond with a hydrant pump, you know, the dry sump.
Try some.
Yeah, they do that kind of thing. Well, and I go back to 79 Trail and the issue of the cistern that was required to put in. And I think that the guy that installed it collapsed it when he installed it. And so it still sits there. I mean, my understanding is there was no like, how do you make anybody do anything with it? It was installed, it got signed off of or whatever, and now it sits there. So it's not of any value. Now that's why I'm asking, like, you know, I know that the fire departments don't need any more responsibility as far as what their expenditures are. The question is who's responsible for it? Is it now a county responsibility?
What would make more sense to me? Because I'm assuming a cistern has to be drained in the wintertime.
Well, if it's buried, so like, you know, USDA requires infrastructure to be more than 5 feet deep, so 5 feet
Okay.
in depth. But, you know, we're not telling them what to do, we're asking, hey,
Right.
this would be, if you're gonna go through the expense of roads and everything else, you know, what's 1,000-gallon cistern?
And is the existing water there, Garth, is that it at a stock tank or something?
There's an existing, livestock tank there.
Okay, and is it solar powered and how's it
It's
pumping?
not solar powered. It must just be gravity flow, like a spring box type thing, I
Okay,
guess.
because it would make more sense to me to have one,
Well, that's what they're taught. There's just one cistern.
but one hydrant on the property that comes from that water you're talking about them sharing for fire use,
There's gonna
but
be 4 wells.
right.
They're not sharing a well.
But we're talking about a refill, but so I understood that the existing water, you're talking about it splitting X number 4 ways.
So the existing water, that there is one appropriated water right on the site and it will go to the lot for purchase.
Okay.
Because it is.
It stays with that lot.
For, the DNRC work that he's talking about is for the 4 new wells, 1 per lot. Which will be divided over the 35 gallons and the tank.
They would split up that one water right into 4.
No, they don't, they're not gonna split the one existing water right, the one that's got the livestock, that will go to lot 4. Whoever purchases lot 4 will get that entire water right there. This will be a new non-appropriated water right that split between the four wells, and there's a whole bunch of new stuff. I haven't even done it yet, because they went through the deal with Broadwater County, so there's a whole bunch of new regulations and stuff with DNRC. We haven't even done it yet, so. But those four wells would divide over that. That's a whole new subject. There is an existing water right on lot 4 that will just go to lot 4 purchaser.
And if I may, just real quick, that the terminology that we're using in this condition of approval actually comes from state law and is recommended by MACO. Where we're trying to get a notice of appropriation.
So back to the request of fire department is we'd like to see a cistern. But no specifics on what it is. However, if we put it in here, it becomes a requirement. So I think that's part of it, is we need to know what is the requirement, what's it gonna cost, what are we gonna put on them? Cause I don't disagree with having, you know, opportunity to get water resources.
And will you have to make that same requirement of every single subdivision following this one? I mean.
Well, that's it. I
once
don't
you're asking
know what's the
us-
policy on when does it strike that balance? I mean, and you guys have a little more of a. Well, I don't know. Every fire district kind of has their own level, but. You know, generally, people growing up in the country understand that. When the fire department shows up, it's just to keep it from catching the haystack on fire. It's not saving your house or vice versa. So I'm not sure. You know, at what level you decide now it requires, because I mean, a four unit subdivision at 20 acres a pop. Isn't exactly high density. And so. I'm not sure. I mean, that they're, to me, to make it a new standard, I think there'd have to be some discussion about what that looks like.
But the thinking is about, well, you know, they're gonna put out whatever. I think we gotta change our thinking on it. I'm not being critical of you, Ross, or anybody else, but I think we gotta look a little forward on these things, because the mere fact that, you know, well, we hope we can save that house. May not hold water a few years from now, because some of them, when they buy a piece of property and they owe on their fire district, they may not think the way we do, and they may expect that.
They expect a paved road and they don't get it.
I know, same thing, the same thing.
But that's, I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I struggle with. Jumping onto a policy that we've never had, because my case in point is, you're living on 20 acres, you don't have a cistern, you don't have anybody checking your septic tank, right? Because our expectation is, well, you're smart enough to pump your tank when it quits working. And so I hate to like take the next step down and say, now we're gonna demand it on every, you know, I mean, and
Why didn't he consider homeowner association? Or did he? Or did
They
actually?
just didn't feel the need to do it.
Okay,
Just with the 20 acres, low density development, they just didn't.
and I realize there's a problem with homeowner association, you know, how many of them are actually, you know, have a group that actually meet and that type of thing, I understand that. There's some of them very, very good and they meet, and others, they're on paper only, it's a full gamut. But it can be a help. You know, there's a subdivision west of town I hear that you gotta have at least 1,400 square feet house. It gets to be 1,200.
well, and nowadays,
You know.
with the cost of building,
Well, that's,
we might be going back to 800 square foot
Well,
houses.
and see, that's,
Well, and I
there's
can,
somewhere to go to say, okay, this ain't apply as current things,
Mhm.
say for instance, the 1,400 square feet, there's somewhere to go to say, okay, let's amend this, change it. I mean, it can go both ways.
and I think homeowners associations are only as good as the people that live in the subdivision and are willing to enforce the rules, because our daughter lived in a subdivision in Belgrade that had a very strict policy, but it was not enforced. Nobody complied with it. I think there's a difference between requirements that, for instance, weeds by state law, you have to control your noxious weeds. And granted, we depend a lot on neighbors reporting that, but we do, to the best of our ability, get people to spray their weeds as a county. But then there's the education side of it that I think that as we have new people moving into our area is what we're really going to have to focus on of, maybe the fire districts hold educational meetings and talk about what truly a fire safe zone looks like. And this is our capabilities to pump water and the amount of water we have. And if you want something beyond that, you as that property owner need to construct that. And we're happy to provide you those resources. So I think, in my opinion, that where we really need to be focusing now is on education versus dealing with dictating to people what they as private property owners need to do, because that will fall on all of us, whether you own 10,000 acres or 20 acres, when we start dictating rules to people. So that's just my thoughts, is that we need to really look at education for the new folks that are moving into our area to help them understand what our capabilities are and what they can do to improve that. Some of these in this list are covered by state law. So yes, they need to be enforced. And sadly, that falls upon your local government to do that. And again, a homeowners association is only as good as the people that live in the subdivision and if they're willing to enforce it or not. And they can change them. We've had that recently of homeowners association that heard something was going to move into their area and they didn't like it, and they changed their covenants so that they could stop that from moving in. So,
And again, the zoning district of, 40 acres or more is an option for individual people or a number of people also. So, question on the wells, okay, they're required to do a well on each lot, right? Right. I got it in there. Yeah. Now, as long as they do that, you're kind of looking ahead, okay? As long as they do that, there's additional supply of water also.
You're right, yeah. You could even, I would even be okay if, you have some of these conditions where you must be notified of things. You could even notify them of the benefits of installing a cistern, so that if they see the benefits, maybe they can put it in as a benefit to them, and maybe it lowers their insurance or something. There's maybe some benefits, but maybe I'd be okay with that, like letting them know that that is a possibility, and maybe that's something that would be a good idea, but requiring it seemed like it was a little bit limiting to us.
Because what you see on some of these real areas where the wells, they may all go awful deep, but they only get 3 gallons per minute. So what you see is they do the well, they put an individual cistern on there, and with just a little bit different, but just to give you an idea. And then you put an individual cistern there, and then of course the well fills up the cistern. Then you've got the well, and then you got the cistern, and then you've got more readily available water for domestic use. Because 2-3 gallons a minute, you're gonna run out at times.
And then maybe instead of 700 feet, you get 20 gallons a minute, maybe they go 300 feet, get 5 gallons, what I'm saying? It may be a cost benefit to them if they know that it benefits them. If they know they're not required, I think it feels different to it just sets it up to me.
Well, I feel like the cistern is one conversation, and I'm a little unsure on those. The other, of course, is the power to it. Because that's the thing that they're asking for a variance on, is whether we require them to get a utility easement through the neighbors to get it there. And I don't know, just my gut feelings, they might have a hard time with that.
I haven't asked yet, so like I say, it's hard to say, it's a,
Hard to say.
hard to say, it's
And if
a
you-
hardship.
If you wanna have a visual on what existing,
How far is it, going on the county road? I mean, it must,
It's under a mile and a half from the old rock concert grounds. Yeah, up to
but, okay,
rock
but as
concert.
far as like where there's power that they can connect following the county road versus it's a mile and a half.
Well,
versus
I think
over
it's
the
a
hill.
straight shot mile and a half.
What's that?
It'd be longer, I think, if they went up the county road.
Yeah,
cause you go east of that road, you don't run the power mill. The fiber, yeah, fiber cutoff, that's a little ways.
The last big fire we had up there was in the eighties, and it came from a power line blowing down. So
well, see, now these guys are already mitigating problems. They're working power lines.
if they would put power in, I would sure like somebody to specify that it would be underground power. Well, the last storm we had there in May of 2 years ago, that line that fed that, we lost 3 power poles on it.
Yeah. That's quite I mean, the one thing about buried power is the farther you go, the more expensive it gets. It gets hard to.
And if you don't require to get that power there. You go down by Shaman, and I know it's different county, but it really applies. And that was subdivided before subdivision rules and lawyers from down around up. Created all those subdivisions. However. What do you have there now? Some of them have power. And then they won't let. The next guy go to the next guy, because there's no ability to easement at all.
Right.
And then they still, okay, we own this 20-acre piece of land, and these days it's probably, even for that down there is $100,000, $80,000. So they're pulling in RVs and hooking up a generator.
Just kind of transient sort of.
It's not if you're looking.
Yeah,
Situation, okay, it's just,
Okay,
So the other thing that I never heard anybody address, that road was closed at least 2 major times last winter.
oh, the road access?
Yeah, county road.
We couldn't keep it open.
One gal worked in town, she rode a snowmobile down to the fire hall.
She's my kind of gal.
And I don't know what to say. This is kind of, and I don't mean to play the contrarian, but I just feel like I'm supposed to, ask the hard questions or whatever, but here again, we do the best we can at the county, right? And it's not always, the road gets blown closed, sometimes you can't get in. I don't know that necessarily gives us the ability to say, sorry, you don't get to live up here because we can't necessarily take care of your road. And I can, some form or fashion that was brought up, people move in there, and then all of a sudden they're demanding, that you save my property or you pave to my driveway or whatever, and we go through that all the time. In some form or fashion with people that move in from somewhere out in the Tules, and they start demanding, well, I came from Oregon, and in Oregon, they know how to do it, kind of stuff. And you explain, well, you live 15 miles from anything, you're not gonna get it. I don't know that still gives us the ability. I don't feel comfortable in saying, well, so tough, you don't get to live there. I'm good with saying tough, we're not gonna comply your road because you live 15 miles from the middle of nowhere, and we gotta do priorities first, and you're down the road a ways. But that's right, that's the question is. Are we in a position, should the government be in the position to tell people where they can live based upon what our perceived ability to provide services? And I don't like acting like the government should have that kind of authority, right? As an individual, you want to buy up somewhere, some windy, you see them all the time. Somebody builds up this stupid windy trail that came from California and it looked great. And around LA when they built up that little windy road. They do it here and all of us look at it and think, what are you gonna do in the winter? You know, and sure enough, years later, they're trying to sell it because they realize they can't get out of it, but. I don't feel like it's my position to tell them they can or can't do that. I don't know.
Again, I think that's some education. Please take one of our new brochures of Welcome to Fergus County. And we try to make that clear to people that we can't always guarantee your road is gonna be open. We can't always guarantee your road's gonna be in perfect condition. You need to get involved with local fire and fire control and try to make yourself as fire safe as you can. But we have people that have lived here 100 years that are angry that their road isn't open at all times, regardless of the blizzard and the wind and the snow levels. So I think that's just human nature, but because we can't guarantee they couldn't keep the city streets open during our storm we had this winter.
Can I,
Morality,
I'm gonna
without-
interrupt real quick.
Without borough.
Just one sec.
Yeah.
We may lose our Zoom in a second.
Oh,
Is there
yeah.
anything else? I don't know at what point it's gonna go away, but I think there's a limited time on it.
Yeah.
So anything somebody wants to hit Matt with and before he pops off because he's gone? Okay, I just want to throw that out. We can continue having
Thank
the
you.
conversation. I just want to throw that out there. So,
Sorry, Russ.
yeah, no,
I just want to make a statement that, you know, the reason the road stays open for us neighbors is because of this guy.
yeah.
Okay, and I'm not discounting the county gets out pretty frequently, because we kind of close to the missile site, so it's not all bad. But you know,
I can tell you
just
about that later.
recognize who really is. Keeping
Right.
some of that open for the buses and anything else. You know, I mean, it's a team effort, I mean.
Right.
You know.
And that's another thing that I think that it's important for us to educate people on is our neighbors keep us upright and standing a lot of the time, and you're welcome to be part of the neighborhood and pitch in, but yeah, maybe buy a little fuel for the plow once in a while.
Well, and I want to say, I mean, I definitely am concerned, like, you know, the discussion about other areas around here that have these subdivision or just platted whatever lots sitting out there with absolutely no restrictions, covenants, or anything. And they do kind of end up being homeless encampments. I don't think that's a healthy thing, right? And that's kind of where, you know, the individual that's going through the subdivision had some sort of covenant restrictions. The problem, of course, with covenants are everybody on those lots, somebody there has to agree with it and enforce it through civil court. It's not something we cover.
Mhm.
Zoning is the only way that gives it teeth through the government to enforce something. But I don't know.
We can go back to the zoning district, and they've got over 40 acres, and they're able to do that. And I don't know how many there is in Fergus County, not all that many,
Not very many.
I don't know. But it's a way, I've told people, I don't know how many times.
There'd be an opportunity. Just gonna throw this out there. Maybe I'm not supposed to. What the hell else do you think? I'm not supposed to. Maybe if the developers had a conversation with the adjoining landowners within the discussion about subdivision in a zoning district in exchange for a
Power.
easement for power. I don't know, just throwing it out there. And you know, this is not a decision, I mean, I'm just saying that my only concern is
Just for the
the
fire.
variance side of it. Yeah. But that would be something. I don't know.
It would certainly make the property more marketable. You're gonna have a limited number of people interested in a off-grid situation, and if you could work up something that makes everything more palatable to the neighbors to
So
get
even
that
if
easement.
even if the variance is denied. And they're required to get easements to the site, they still aren't required to install power. So the easements will be
Right.
sitting there, but there's still not gonna be.
No, I got you, I got you.
I mean, they
But,
won't. they-
Right.
but the side of it that I see, cause what I hear from the neighbors, and this would be my saying, you know,
Yeah.
It's your neighbor doing it, right?
Absolutely, understand.
And,
Yeah,
and there was some sort of zoning, not owners crazy stuff, but just something that would make it where you couldn't just turn it into a homeless encampment without sanitation and, right, those kind of things. And there are sanitation concerns in here, but somebody buys the lot and they pull up a camper and they start camping out there. How do we handle that?
yeah.
And I don't know. You might have a better handle of what it takes to put in place a zoning district. But that's a way of putting something in with some teeth. Here again, I'm not in favor of something that says you gotta have a 2,400 square foot house and, it has to be earth tone colors and, all that kind of stuff. But maybe something that says to the neighbors, it's in this district that says,
It's important to be good, and yeah, gotcha, yep. And I mean, that for me, that's outside of my pay grade, but I definitely bring that up with.
One other thing, Arthur, we had concerned about was that survey. It really changes the historic property boundaries.
Oh,
And I don't think that it would hold up in a legal case because of that, because they change them drastically and it's so close to what
really?
historical boundaries are. And we, as landowners, neighbors, are worried that's gonna create some unnecessary interactions with new neighbors if that's not addressed.
so historical boundaries meaning grandpa put the fence in the wrong place and now.
No, not necessarily that. So, boy, you want to dig deep in this.
Well, I just know because out in our country, none of the fence lines are on, and my grandpa said. You gotta get there first, because the guy who starts building fence first gets an extra 40 feet or 40 yards or something.
So I'll just kind of give a quick synopsis of the history of that. So in 1882, much of Fergus County was surveyed, right? So government survey came with chains and threw a guy in a wagon with sticks. They surveyed all the section corners, put a monument in, marked the monument, came back to all the quarter sections, put a stake in, put a rock in. So Montana Annotated Code says that those surveys stand regardless of how inaccurate they are. So everything is supposed to be based on the retracement survey of the original surveys, but that takes a lot of time. So if you get a surveyor who says, I can't find any historical marker or monument, I can do a calculated line and do what's called a local point. So he puts a stake in, puts his cap on, that's a new local point. And that might be 20 to 150 feet, whatever, off of what the historical line would have been if they could have found it. It's accurate to the modern measurements, inaccurate to the original survey. So the next guy comes along, Montana Annotated Code says he doesn't have to go back and redo all the historical searches for that rock. He can go back to the nearest local point, use that as a reference point to do his survey.
So then it just grows.
It just grows. And so in our area, the new surveys can be off 140 feet compared to the historical survey. And it builds from every new survey, pushes that boundary. So this survey builds off of a local point that was put in place in 1985. And it skews the whole plot away from the historical lines. And it's accurate based off of the 1985 historical point, inaccurate based off of the government survey from 1882.
So how does that justify, how do you rectify that then?
It's a very gray area in Montana Annotated Code. Montana Annotated Code says the surveyor has to use the Bureau of Land Management's survey manual. The survey manual has a lot of not telling you what to do, but you have a weighted decision as a surveyor to make. So if if a new line goes through somebody's house, probably don't do that. If there's a historical line that's locally accepted close by, you should probably do that. So if a surveyor says that there's a bunch of hand-cut juniper posts, we put a lot of emphasis on that value of that original line. He's using that as a weighted decision to determine whether the line should be on that original line or on a calculated line. The problem is it's totally a decision based on that surveyor.
Right.
So one surveyor might say, well, that old fence line looks pretty good to me. Puts his pin there. The next guy says, Well, I'm in the middle of this pasture. I can't quite see an old fence line. I'm gonna do a calculated position. It goes right here. So now instead of having a square, it starts to do this. And like I said, you only have to go back to the last local point as a surveyor to calculate your new position. So it's a weighted opinion of a surveyor, not so much an actual legal boundary. So for us, the new survey is very much in our favor. We get a whole big chunk of what was theirs. But if somebody buys lot one and goes, well, here's the fence line, and he puts his house in the corner, and we go, oh, whoa, whoa, the new survey says, well, you don't have your house. You know, we're already at odds with that new neighbor.
But if it's in your favor and we plat it and we pin it that way, that becomes, I mean, they can't go back and say,
Well, it could,
this is the old line.
it's a gray area. The old line, so if you go
I mean,
back,
the plat's the legal document though, right?
I don't know.
well,
I don't know if it
there's
makes sense.
there's a historical. So the original government survey, as inaccurate as they were, it stands. So if you build your house in the corner of what you think is yours, because the surveyor came out and put a pin in there. But your neighbor goes over and says, there's one of those 1882 historical rocks. And I went and found the other one down the way, and I draw a straight line through it. Your house is in the middle of it. Even though your house is accurately positioned at some point, the original survey has a historical building block,
And so then you go to court and a judge decides how to split the baby.
how to split the baby.
Well, you wanna avoid that.
And how do you do, so Gary, how do you do that? How do you avoid that?
Well,
I mean, if-
first of all, once you split it, the legal description that you record when you sell it is the new survey. It's not the old one. Okay? So that becomes the legal document, okay? And this is probably a title person. I just know enough to this much, okay? So go ahead, what did you say, Russ?
But-
Ask.
But, okay, but the questions you just said though, that still though, if you go and you dispute it, it goes back to, there's precedence held in the original.
No.
So the new one doesn't necessarily mean you're safe.
It's a really gray area. The Montana Annotated Code really only says. Use your best decision based off the BLM manual. To make the choice. So when this survey skews into our property, we lose a little bit. We could fight lot 4's owner and say, don't touch that fence. Now, you can mitigate that by different owners can go and sign an agreement saying that this is the fence line. This is how we want it to stay. So you can have an accurate survey that doesn't mean anything based upon what you agree. So.
And then that's filed with.
I am
That's
so
filed with-
confused.
Sounds really.
So,
That's why they have courts.
right, so,
Right there.
but that was just one as we were looking at it.
Yeah.
As we're getting more and more of these owners that are coming into the area and they're surveying. And they're basing that survey off of. This is what the survey says, this is what it means. We own your water tank, we own your half of your barn, whatever it is, it was never an issue before, but these old rocks, right, that are in Montana. Becoming more and more challenging to find.
Mhm.
So it's more convenient for the surveyor or the landowner to just use that survey, but for us generational guys. Becomes a really big thorn in our side.
And there's several other things, city of Woodstown, around East Fork. Okay, let me show you this fence line, and this is not even a north-south, it's the east-west one. And it's a good 20-30 yards. Because there was some new surveys done. You can tell that's, the neighbors and things like that.
Okay, I don't want to cut this short, but we are kind of over and I had a 3 o'clock that
Sorry.
hopefully I can get to. Any last input on, we're gonna have to.
Yeah,
We'll have to look at this and do a little background. This isn't something we're gonna take action on today.
Good.
I don't think so,
No.
unless somebody wants to take action, but I don't think we better.
You table.
Yes, I move to table the approval of the, what's the name of the subdivision? South McDonald Creek subdivision.
Moved in second, in favor,
Aye.
okay. When's our,
August 11th is the next, and I think that's the date of your time on it,
so we have to know by August 11th.
right?
I think it was that,
All right.
So we
well,
have to make a decision August 11th. You'll be okay with August 11th?
All right,
County has 35 working days to complete their review, August 11th.
Yeah.
It can be extended by the developer. Somebody?
okay,
The subdivider can extend it. Ask for an extension.
all right, if we request an extension. Well, I think that should give us enough time to do our due diligence and have some something intelligent to decide there. All right, no appointments. Is there any more public comment on non-agenda items? If not, next meeting date's August 11th at 2, August 20th at 5:15, August 25th at 2. Meeting adjourned. All right, John.